Escaping Fragility from, I have it on Kindle. I have a free PDF, which you can get online. Just Google it. And I bought the physical because it's just that good. It's worth rereading. So, The Modern Struggle, page 192. The Modern Struggle. Lone individuals summoning inhuman willpower, fasting, meditating, and exercise. Up against armies of scientists and statisticians weaponizing abundant food, screens, and medicine into junk food, clickbait news, infinite porn, endless games, and addictive drugs. Damn. Well freaking said, sir. The importance of the individual. All right. Now I was talking to some people today that are over hanging out with us about the 4 levels of conformity. I think that's the name of the article by Paul Graham. And he has these 4 quadrants which kind of separate everybody into a bucket. And obviously there's different, as a quadrant, you can plot like as you're closer to this end, closer to that end, whatever. But the 4 levels are basically to this, and I'm going to paraphrase this. You should read the article. You have the aggressive conformists, where they'll yell at you if you don't follow the rules. They'll tattletale. These are the Karens. You have the non-aggressive conformists that kind of just like do everything and are afraid to break the rules and like goody two-shoes, like we got to do it because that's the way it is. Then you have the like kind of, I forget what they're called, but it's basically people that, because it's too hard to do it, be a rebel, they just kind of end up conforming, but they don't really care either way, or maybe they don't really like the rules, or they don't really trust it, but they don't really go out of their way to break them. And then the final quadrant, I believe it's the bottom right, are the rebels, like myself, that actively, aggressively fight against the status quo and fight against conformity. So, for me, I keep coming back to the individual, and I truly try to empathize with people that don't have the constitution of the rebel, because being a rebel is not for everybody. I mean, it's not a fun thing. But the thing that is rewarding, though, as a byproduct of that, is the ability to think for yourself and to be an individual sovereign human. And this conveys massive benefits. And if the world ever goes to shit, like, for example, myself and the preparations I've made as a result of not being a conformist, I will benefit tremendously. I will pretty much become wealthy overnight. I don't want that to happen. Like, I really don't want that to happen. I don't care if I have all the money in the world. If I'm living in a society that's crumbling around me, what the hell's the point? You know? And I can't stand seeing people suffer. And I have empathy and compassion for my fellow humans, even the ones that I think are the aggressive conformists or whatever. They're just blinded by their own dogma and lack of awareness or whatever. So I don't even blame these people. I try to have compassion. The human animal is a very complex, just manifestation of nature. And what he, or she does is a reflection of that. But for you, are you going to be that lone individual taking control of your life, your finances, your just thinking critically for yourself, right? Or are you going to delegate that to other people? You're going to delegate to the experts that pretend to have your best interests at heart, but they don't. And if they even convince themselves that they do, it's only if it's convenient. And this is a very important point here. Experts, government officials, scientists, professors, anybody that has something to lose, usually it's their job or tenure, or they can be publicly shamed or whatever, they will only do anything for others outside of themselves if they can do it in a way that does not threaten the things that they value. And if they value their job, their status, their prestige, their awards, their public image, that will obviously put a hamper on their altruism, and it will put a hamper, more importantly, this is what matters, it will put a hamper on their ability to think for themselves. And because most people in these systems default to this, they default to protection of what they value, you get very bad thinking, very bad data manipulation, very bad bias, and we see it all throughout science. And we especially see it in academia, which has basically been overrun at this point by mob rule. So what are you going to do in your life is the question. Are you going to take ownership of figuring these things out for yourself and doing your own research? Or are you just going to trust what the mainstream media feeds you up? Or what, certain people you follow on social media feed you up? Or what big tech feeds you up? Or whatever? And as he says here, the modern struggle is you, the individual, trying to pursue happiness and health and freedom. You're up against forces that don't want that for you. And it's by accident. It's not like most of the time they're not actively trying to keep you from pursuit of happiness. They're just propping up a broken status quo because the system itself has been built on top of this status quo. And this perfectly explains what's going on in 2020. Like, you have scientists willing to speak out saying that basically this C-19 thing is like the greatest hoax ever. Some people say that. Some people say it's just complete hyperbole at this point and overblown and propagandized and politicized and whatever. And now you have vaccines being manufactured on a rush schedule, and the media is basically saying this vaccine proves this, and all they're doing is iterating what the company said. Like it's a freaking shit show. I mean, vaccines in the past would take years to develop, but now we're going to rush one out for apparently this crazy, deadly virus? Like, what are you talking about? As if the public didn't have things to be suspect of from the mainstream narrative. Yet people still gobble it up. Because again, it's the modern struggle. Like, you're trying to fight it and you're trying to be aware and do these things, but things are just coming at you from all angles. And you got bills to pay and kids to take care of, whatever. Like, I get it. It's tough. You don't have to be a rebel, at least publicly, but you need to rebel against the status quo. And maybe that's what I'll call this video. Rebel against the status quo, or something to that effect. If you adopt, for everything you adopt based on the status quo, you are probably destroying some good in your life. You might be destroying your health. You might be destroying your finances. It might be a slow erosion. It might be a fast windfall of destruction. It might just literally be the final straw that breaks the camel's back, and it doesn't happen for a few years. Like, who knows what it is? But these systems that are in place are extremely fragile. And most people don't realize how fragile society is. Most people don't realize how fragile governments are, how fragile our food system is, clean water, electricity, our power grid, everything. These things are so fragile, and we fall victim to recency bias because things have been a certain way. We think it's always going to be that way, and that is not the case. Look throughout history, and you can see periods of stability, periods of unrest, revolution, back up, periods of stability. Like, it's just like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. And in 2020, we're probably somewhere around this like kind of stable area that's like slanted down a little bit, and maybe it'll come up a little bit, maybe it'll go all the way down. But like, over time, it's going to go down, right? That's kind of the law that when you look at history and you understand the law of entropy, you realize that there's no way that the future is just uphill sailing, right? It's impossible. It's mathematically impossible for that to happen. And your best defense is being an individual sovereign, preparing yourself, your family. Get some silver, some gold, some Bitcoin. Get your passports. And disconnect from the mainstream garbage. Man, that's really what it is. Disconnect from the mainstream status quo. Let me know in the comments.